Hi, it's Jeff Altman, the Big Game Hunter, and welcome to Career Coach Office Hours. It is Friday, March, I have to check here, 11th, 2022, and I'll just remind you, Tuesdays and Fridays at 1 p.m. Eastern, I take questions from people and respond to them. Now, you can send them to me in advance if you can't be available live. And you can do that by emailing them to me at thebiggamehunter@gmail.com. And in the subject line, put the phrase office hours. This way I know what it's about and can, organize myself in advance of the show with the questions I received. And I receive a lot these days. So it just gives me a chance to aggregate them in advance of the show. And if you'd like to be available, all you have to do is put your questions into chat and I'll cover them in the course of the show itself. So again, I'll just remind you, I take questions about job search, hiring more effectively, management, leadership. I help you deal with different workplace related issues as well. So again, if you're here and you have a question, don't hesitate to put it in the chat. I'd be very happy to respond. Okay. Now, I start off the shows with what I call a coffee toast, and it's just an acknowledgement for people in the workforce who care. And today I'll just acknowledge people who are in Ukraine and caring and have stayed behind and are working with civilians. Um, Man, unbelievable what you're doing and the sacrifice you're making. I hope your country survives. Um, Blessing to you. Again, an acknowledgement to you. So I have a lot of questions that I received in advance of the show, and I just noticed it got a little dim outside. So my apologies if my face is not illuminated as it normally might be. So here's the first question I received. In a job application, what's the best answer for the question, why do you want to apply for this particular career opportunity or this particular profile? Let's just stick with career opportunity. And I'll translate that into, why are you applying for this job? So I think of this question as being a stupid question because they're really not going to find out much that's interesting. But you can give an interesting answer. And the simplest way to respond is by saying something to the effect of, I'm applying because I believe I have skills that, when leveraged properly, would allow me to be effective in supporting the objectives of this department. And thus, when they ask you about that, in the course of the actual interview, you can talk about how your background fits what you understand the role to be. And I'm sure there's lots more than what's been described to me, but based upon the fundamentals of the job, as were explained to me by the recruiter, the job description, the ad, whatever it was, it kind of looked like my background might support the goals and intentions of this position. So I have a lot more I need to learn about it to be sure of it. But again, superficially it would look like I could help. And this is a firm I've been very interested in working for a long time. Why have you been interested? And then you talk with them about the organization, what you understand it's like working there. You flatter the heck out of them, and then you move on. So I dealt with this in the application and the follow-up questions that they'll ask you based upon your answer. Good luck. I hope you get the interview. How do you avoid sugarcoating what your company has to offer a candidate? Well, the answer is by not sugarcoating what the company has to offer someone. Now, I've said this many times before. When job hunters, shall we say, exaggerate what they're able to do, they do it in their resumes, they do it on interviews. It took me a while when I did recruiting to figure out that employers exaggerate as well too. So I realized that when it came to me, I'd never heard of a hiring manager ever say to a job hunter, I've taken over this group And boy, have I inherited headaches. My predecessor, well, I'll just simply say they didn't know how to hire for heck. And the result wound up being that she or he hired a group of imbeciles. She got fired. Her predecessor got fired. It doesn't take a genius to figure out my butt is on the line. I'm trying to rebuild this group so we get great results. My butt is on the line. Instead, everyone puts on a happy smile button face and they talk about a great opportunity with a terrific team of people. Have I mentioned we're like family around here? No, of course not. So I'll just simply say the way to counter it is by talking initially about the job and the expectations, what it's like working there. And you can say to someone, and it's not everyone's cup of tea. I'm demanding. I expect excellence from people, not perfection, excellence. I'll help you a lot in your development professionally, but I expect a commitment from people. And you talk about what that commitment will entail. So there are no surprises when they're on board. You see, you're right. Hiring managers sugarcoat opportunities to people. And thus, within 6 months of joining, 30% of people have buyer's remorse about having made the decision to join. You don't want that to happen. Invariably, you'll be disappointed by the people who you hire, and you're going to feel as though you made a mistake. Better to scare people off at the beginning by telling them all the difficult things that have happened there. And you can say, the person who sat at the desk I'm going to ask you to sit at didn't really perform well. And you can tell them exactly what you were disappointed in by the work. I tried to help them, but they just couldn't get it. They were someone I inherited from my predecessor. I expect more from you than I got from them. And thus, what you're doing is really explicit. You're telling people what you expect of them. There's no surprises when they come on board, right? You're not sugarcoating anything for them. So the easiest way not to sugarcoat is to tell them what their role and responsibilities will be and what your expectations of them will be once they're in the role. What unique things should one consider before accepting a job? I don't know what is unique to you. So I don't know how to answer this question because most of the things people will tell you are pretty common. What are the hours? What's my boss like? What are the benefits? It's all going to be average stuff. And the key word there is unique. I don't know what unique is for you. Ask the question a different way. If a recruiter calls your references, is that a good sign? Depends on where in the process this is. If they're doing this during the screening interview, this is not a good sign. All they're doing is trying to, and I'm going to start off with this being a third-party recruiter who's doing it. If a third-party recruiter is doing your references after a screening interview, they're trying to get a new client to recruit for. That's the fact of it. If they're doing it, if a company is doing it after a screening round, that's way early. Usually they'll check references of people that they're interested in hiring, which means it's at the back end of all the interviews. And they may say to you, do you mind if we check references? The answer should be, I'm just curious. Does this mean you're ready to make a decision about extending an offer? If they say yes, you have your answer. If they say, no, this is part of the evaluation, let's go further. And once you're ready to make that decision, I'll give you the okay. But you have more to know about me. And thus, let's continue interviewing so that you feel comfortable with me and my previous managers aren't influencing the decision. Well, what do you have to be scared of? I'm not scared of anything. But the fact is, if everyone starts calling my references early, they're not going to be particularly excited about this. So when you're serious and you're ready to make an offer, let me know. I'll alert them to it. I'm sure they'll be happy to talk with you. Before then, much too soon. Here we go to the next question. When you are undecided about a candidate, do you typically lean toward no hire? The answer is yes. And that's the way most managers are. They say, I want to think about it for a little bit. And the metaphor that I heard many years ago when I did search was, if we're going to put someone on the back burner, meaning we're going to wait for a while before making a decision, they'll usually fall off the stove, meaning there's no hire that's going to take place. You can, as a job hunter, try to force the issue and say, I get the idea you're not sure about me and my qualifications. What else do you need to know in order to feel comfortable with the decision one way or the other? I'd be happy to answer your questions. So, for example, they say you're pending. We're still talking to people. Great. I want to make sure you have everything that you need from me. And this is the last question I tell people to ask in an interview. Is there anything that you've heard or not heard that gives you reason to hesitate as to whether or not I'm qualified to do this job? Every once in a while, you'll have someone who says, I got what I need. Great. Most of the time, they'll tell you something. And that gives you the opportunity to address it and put it to bed. You may not get hired because there may be someone stronger who presents themselves, but the fact of the matter is you just want to get a decision from them. So ask them a question like that at the end of your interview. If you haven't heard from them after a few days, I put a quick call into them or an email and just simply ask, I have the idea that you're not sure about whether I'm qualified. What else do you need to know in order to be able to make a decision comfortably? Got it? So I'm just going to remind you to put your questions about job search, hiring, management, leadership, dealing with particular workplace issues, put that into chat so this way I can answer your questions. In addition, I'm just going to say my website is thebiggamehunter.us. At the site, you can schedule time for a free discovery call, a coaching session. My blog has more than 12,000 searchable posts there. There's just a lot of great information to help you professionally. Also, there's information about my books and guides to job hunting that are up on Amazon, as well as courses I have available. So there's a lot there to help you. Also, I'm going to remind you that I have a YouTube channel at jobsearchtv.com with more than 7,000 videos on it. And my podcast, No BS Job Search Advice Radio, is #1 in Apple Podcasts for job search. That has more than 2,300 episodes over more than 11 years that I've done. So it's a great resource. It's a 5-day-a-week show. People love it. It's available on Spotify as a video podcast and on other platforms as purely audio. So again, No BS Job Search Advice Radio is a terrific resource to help you with your job search. Let's continue on, okay? Which means I've got to scroll up to the top here to get to the next question. Do companies always extend a verbal offer and then generate the offer letter after the candidate has said yes? The answer is typically yes, and every once in a while it's done differently. The reason for it's really pretty simple. They don't want to create work for themselves if you're not going to say yes to their offer, right? They have to generate an offer letter, put it in an email. I know it doesn't sound like a lot, but imagine 5 minutes 25 times a week. it's a lot of work. This may be pointless. So, if they extend an offer that you're prepared to say yes to, say yes. And then from there, say, I obviously need a copy of the offer letter and the benefits materials in order to give notice. So that pulls you back ever so slightly. And you can then ask, what other contingencies do you have before I would give notice? They may say it's pending a background check and salary confirmation. Great. And how would you do the background check? Because again, I'm not going to give notice until the background check is completed. Well, do you have anything to worry about? Of course not. But your offer is not legal until the background check is completed. And thus, I'm not going to give notice until that's done. So what paperwork do you need me to sign to move forward with that? And that's the way to respond to them, since, again, you don't have the letter. It's contingent upon references and a background check. Don't give notice until you have the letter and this other stuff is done. Okay? Here we go. Next question. On a job application, how would you answer the question, outline 2 of your main achievements, describe what they are, the process you went through, and their positive outcome for you and others? The way I would respond to it is, it's in my resume. And if you have more information, if you need more, let's talk about it during the interview. I'm certainly not going to sit there and transcribe what's in the resume onto an application. So it's a stupid question. It's as though, well, I'm not going to guess as to why they do it. Maybe this is at a level of position where people tend not to do that in their resume. It's certainly possible, but I would direct them to the resume if it's there. I would use, I would then say, and if you need more information, I'm happy to answer your questions about it. And we'll move on from there. If they insist on more, you can simply say, isn't that what the interview is about? Do you really expect me to spend 20 minutes writing in a 3-line area about 2 things that I've accomplished? Because that's really what it normally is, right? It's a short field on an application, and they want you to have 2 main achievements there, and what the outcomes were and the process you went through. It's impossible. So throw it back at them, and if they don't like it, this is probably not a place you want to work at. Next question. What's the difference between a provisional hire and an interim hire? So an interim is someone who's brought in as an interim individual between 2 others that are going, the one who was in the job previously and the one who's getting the job. It's a temporary employee who is a bridge between what was in the past and who they're going to hire. Sometimes the provisional, the interim, joins initially as an interim, I'm sorry, I'm getting this messed up. Let me try this again. Sometimes a person joins, I'm sorry, wrong spot. Sometimes an interim hire is someone who's a bridge between the past and the future employee. A provisional hire is perhaps during that period of time where you're on probation in the role. And thus, if you don't perform well, you're there in effect provisionally until you clear probation, and then your employment is officially permanent. So interim is a bridge person. They're not an employee. They're usually an external person. A provisional is during a period of time where you might be on probation. Sometimes an interim can become a provisional if they agree to join an organization. However, the other way doesn't work because the provisional, initially joining as a provisional, you're an employee of that firm. Sorry, I was a little flustered there for a moment with my language. I'm glad I was able to clarify that. Should you take a job at a company that just got bought by another company? The answer is no, unless you're going in there intentionally as a contractor. And the reason for it's very simple. Usually the acquiring firm is going to make dramatic changes at the firm that's been acquired. There's going to be a merger between the two. So, for example, two human resources departments are going to become one. And that one department is going to need fewer employees. Same thing with every department in that organization. Maybe they do 125% of the current of the acquiring firm's staff, but it's not going to be all the employees. So if you're going to join the acquired firm, don't do it. Don't do it unless you're joining on a interim basis and you know that going in, or you're there coming on as a consultant, but not as an employee, because there are no guarantees. Your manager at the acquired firm has no power over the decision as to whether you stay once the acquisition closes. They're too low level 99% of the time to really know if your job could be saved. Do you want to live with that? Because frankly, the other people at that firm are going to be heading for the door because they know their days are numbered. Why would you be joining in a situation like this? Let's go to the next question. How do I turn down a second interview? Well, number one, politely. Now, if you got the request from an agent, from a third-party recruiter, you can send them an email that says, I appreciate your client is interested in meeting with them again. I'm not interested in meeting with them. The job isn't quite right for me. Now, at that point, they may act incensed. What do you mean it's not right for you? And they're going to try and, shall we say, bully, intimidate, psych you into going back for another interview. You can just simply say, look, I'm getting an offer from someone else I'm much more interested in than your client. But who's making the offer? Because the next thing they're going to do is talk down that firm and say, what, are you kidding? You'd go to that firm? No way. My client is so much better. The opportunity is better. The money's going to be, they're going to say a whole bunch of crap to try and persuade you to go back to their client and just simply say, look, do you want me not to show up for the interview and have you look bad? No, I want you to go on the interview. I'm not going to do that. Do you want me to email the client and let them know I'm not interested, or do you want to tell them? Because I can wait and not show up. I can make the appointment and send them an email last minute saying I told you that I wasn't interested and you pressured me into, it's your choice. And they'll say, no, I'll tell them. Thank you. And just bring it to an end. Now, if it's with a company recruiter, again, very politely, you send an email. Say, thank you for the opportunity to meet a second time. I'm not interested in the position as it's been outlined to me, so I'm going to continue to interview. Or I'm receiving an offer from another firm. I don't want to just go to a second interview knowing that you're still in decision-making mode and this is a job I'm really interested in taking as long as the money's right. So give me a few days once I hear the offer. If it's not good, I'd be happy to meet with you. If it is good, I haven't wasted your time. Notice, very polite and respectful because they are interested in you. And perhaps it's a firm you would have wanted to join, but it just isn't the right timing for you. So courteous, that's what you have to be. Courteous. So Goji Nashio put something into chat that I think I'm going to just block this person because it's a bunch of garbage. Let's move on. Next question. What should I do? It's been almost a month since I attended an interview, and I haven't had any feedback from the company. Should I wait, or can I call to ask? They've probably rejected you by ghosting you. That's the probability. Don't wait any further. I put in a call or send them an email or text, depending upon how you've previously communicated with them. And all I'd simply say is, I interviewed for this position on February 5th. I haven't heard anything since that time. Would it be fair to assume I've been rejected for this position? They'll say yes, and then you can officially move on. They may say no, we're still interviewing other people, at which point you ask them, so what else do you need to know in order to evaluate as to whether or not I'm qualified? And they said, no, we have what we need, at which point you go, thank you, and move on. They're not really interested. So act now. Make them communicate. Nothing wrong with that. You shouldn't have waited a month. You should have done this at the end of a week and then followed up with them. Next question. Do you talk to a recruiter by video or audio call during a salary negotiation after the offer's been extended? Well, however you do it is less important that you do it. So let's start off with the premise that you have an offer and you're trying to negotiate a little bit, trying to get the offer increased. And thus, the answer to this depends upon you. Will you appear nervous on camera, or should we hide this from the person you're negotiating with? If you're going to be scared, do it as a phone call, because no one on their side, once they see you're scared, they know they got you. They know they got you, and they're not going to have to do anything else to get you to say yes. So if you're confident and you project confidence, if you conduct yourself like a peer of people in your conversations, you can do it on camera, by all means. Get on camera with a big smile on your face and let them see how happy you are that you have the offer. Hey, I'm really looking forward to joining, but there are a couple of details I need to iron out with you before officially saying yes. I'm going to need about 10, 15 minutes tops. Should we schedule a time for this? No, we can do that right now. Great. And do you want to send me a scheduling link? And I'll just jump on and let's negotiate. If we're doing it by phone, you want to schedule a time for this, or is this a good time for you? However you do it, it involves you. It's not the process that is the question mark here. What you should be able to do is project confidence if you're on camera. And if you can't do that, if you can't speak like you're talking to a peer, then do it by phone. Just going to remind you, at my website, you can schedule time for a free discovery call, a coaching session, visit my blog with tons of great information there, and find out about my books and guides to job hunting. Also, my YouTube channel is at jobsearchtv.com. It's also available in the JobSearch TV app on Amazon. So you can watch me on your big screen set and watch my stuff there. And No BS Job Search Advice Radio is a video podcast on Spotify and in Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Google Play, and in other places, it's pure audio. However you want to get more information, I make it available readily. Okay, here we go. Next question. Would you be concerned if a candidate who applied for a job has has been in 3 jobs over 4 years? I'd want to know more. And what I'd want to know is, As I'm recording this, we feel like we're post-COVID. But if you go back 4 years, that's 2.5 years of COVID. And it's a period of time when things were booming. Did they have a lot of those job changes during the COVID years? If so, have mercy. Have mercy. People lost their jobs during that time through no fault of their own. And to hold that against them during that time speaks poorly of you. So, should an employer be concerned about an individual who had 3 jobs in 4 years? No. Find out more so you understand the circumstances. For example, someone had a health issue. A family member had a health issue. They left. That's 1 job change. They returned. COVID hit. They had 2 more. What do you want? What should they have done? Should they have not spent time with their mom or dad in the deathbed? Come on. Have some humanity here. I have a few more here, and I'll see how far I can go. I'm only going to do 2 more. Are job interviews by Skype or video calls becoming more common for applicants that live a long distance away, or do most companies prefer to still meet face-to-face? They prefer to meet face-to-face, but for long distance or relocation, they're always going to have a preference for the video call rather than flying you in. Now, if you're 2 hours away, they may ask you to drive in to meet with them, take the train, a bus, what have you. But their preference ultimately will be to meet you. And if this is, again, I'm working with the assumption that this is not a position that's advertised as remote only, that it might be hybrid. If you're looking to relocate to their area, eventually they're going to want to meet you in person. And you'll understand what their work environment is like now. They'll want to give you the once over, ask a lot of questions, have you meet people, see how you interact with others. It's pretty normal stuff. However, if this is going to be remote only, they don't need to. If this involves relocation, before they're going to spend a few $1,000s to move you, they'll want to meet you, have you spend time with them, get a feel for you, and then make a decision. So again, no simple answer. It depends upon the circumstances of the firm and you. Last question for today, unless someone puts something into chat. What are the signs that the recruiter or manager is losing interest in the candidate during the interview? There are many signals. The questions become more abrupt. You notice they're not paying attention. When they get to, so do you have any questions for us? They're not really selling you on the opportunity. They're basically sitting back and trying to stifle you on. Not selling you is the biggest one. Because if they're interested, they're going to sell you. If they're not interested, it doesn't matter to them. They want to go on to their next meeting. If you notice them drifting or their follow-up questions have nothing to do with your answers to the previous question, like if there are no follow-ups the answers that have a natural follow-up, your candidacy is toast. So those are a few ways to recognize it. So unless someone puts something into chat while I'm doing this, I'm Jeff Altman. I hope you found this helpful. As I mentioned, my website is thebiggamehunter.us. Go to the site, go exploring. There's a lot there to help you. While you're there, you can schedule time for a free discovery call, a coaching session, which I'll obviously charge for. My blog has more than 12,000 searchable posts about job search, hiring, management, leadership, dealing with different workplace issues. You could also find out about my books and guides to job hunting, as well as my courses. Also, Connect with me on LinkedIn at linkedin.com/IN/the Big Game Hunter. I love helping job hunters. My network is going to be a lot larger than yours, and you're going to grow it a lot by connecting with me on LinkedIn. And mention that you saw this. I like knowing I'm helping some folks. And if this isn't the right time for you to visit my website, put that address in your phone. Again, thebiggamehunter.us. My name, Jeff Altman. And in the notes field or in the comments field, put the phrase job search blog. This way you can reference it at a future date and not have to remember my name. And I'll lastly mention jobsearchtv.com on YouTube and No BS Job Search Advice Radio. Subscribe to both. There's great information that you'll be receiving. Have a terrific day, and most importantly, be great. Take care.